the vein of asking questions about electrolytes, again, this is something that is probably not required for your average garden variety pleasure horse who's spending time in a thermoneutral environment in the sun in this beautiful day in central Ohio. But a performance horse that is producing an awful lot of sweat, it may be that they would need some supplementation of electrolytes. And so let me read you this ingredients list. It's always very enlightening. Salt, which I'm assuming to mean sodium chloride, although they don't specifically say that. Salt, calcium, sodium, potassium, magnesium chloride. That's the analysis. And the ingredients are sodium chloride, potassium chloride, magnesium sulfate, calcium carbonate, calcium lactate, silicon dioxide, and natural and artificial flavoring. So the majority of this stuff you can buy for really cheap at the grocery store and mix it up, and you won't have to pay $15 for 5 pounds of it. You can pay $2 for 5 pounds of it. So if this was, this is probably something that, one of the few things that I think it's actually worth your effort if you're looking to supplement this, to just take the time to make it up yourself. Questions about that one? Sand-Aid. So, Sand-Aid, does anyone know what this stuff is for? This stuff is to prevent sand accumulation in the GI tract of your horse. And the bulk of these will contain, as the active ingredient, psyllium or psyllium mucilate, which is the same stuff that's in Magnusol. In order to make established sand accumulations go away, the only really good way to make them go away is to actually cut the horse open and cut it out, honestly. If they have a lot of it, there's really no supplement that you're going to give to make it go away. If you're looking to make a small amount go away or prevent new accumulation, probably the best way to do that is to give large amounts of this stuff through a nasogastric tube, which is certainly not easily accomplished on a day-to-day basis on a farm. The nice thing about these products is active ingredients, psyllium seed husk. That's the only ingredient, actually, as far as active ingredients. Psyllium is a fermentable fiber that tends to produce volatile fatty acids that are very helpful for the cells that line the colon. And so even if you can't give this stuff in bulk sufficient to make sand go away, there's other reasons that this actually may be helpful for your horse's GI tract. So in the vein of things that aren't going to hurt and might do some good, I think this is a good option. You can also buy bulk psyllium mucilate. That's much cheaper on a weight basis than this product, which contains a lot of other stuff as well. Artificial and natural flavors. It wouldn't be a product made in the United States if it didn't have artificial and natural flavors and corn syrup in it, and so this one does. All kinds of other stuff, and it has some vitamins and minerals and things in it as well. So psyllium is probably not going to make sand go away if they have any large accumulation of it, and it's probably not going to be effective when given in 1 to 2 tablespoon amounts top dressed on feed. It probably needs to be given by the pound via nasogastric tube, which, by the way, Dr. Scott and Pariseau can attest to this, that it's fun to give via nasogastric tube because it makes these nice gels very quickly. So it's dump it in fast, stir it around, and start pumping as you dump it in. So it's not easy to give via nasogastric tube either.
How does a horse present if they have sand in their stomach?
Chronic intermittent colic, typically. Yeah. Chronic intermittent colic. So sometimes you can get some clues that it's there if they have a lot of it. It tends to be in the ventral part of their colon, down by the body wall. And sometimes you can hear it. You can see it on an ultrasound. You can see it on an X-ray. But if you see signs of it, it's usually chronic intermittent colic. Okay. I'm not sure I'm going to have too much to say about bee pollen. This was the closest thing I could come up with in my kitchen to bee pollen. I realized that it's honey. A lot of people. Bee pollen. Sign me up. A lot of people, bee pollen gets a lot of press for being an antioxidant. You can buy it and give it orally. People recommend which I always kind of find a little funny because, as anyone who has allergies knows, this time of year is not pleasant, and that's because there's not necessarily bee pollen, but there's pollen and particulates everywhere. So the jury is out. There's no evidence that it's efficacious in horses, but you'll probably see this as an option on a lot of supplement lists. Incidentally, does anyone know the reason why little children are not meant to eat honey?
That would be because of infantile botulism.
Lisa would know. Yes. Because it's unpasteurized, and even if it is pasteurized.
No, my horse is a botulism survivor over there.
All right, last one in the bucket is this jug of liquid called Magic Cell. Most companies will have some product like this. Some people, the one that most people will pick up, it's called Red Cell. It's essentially a solution that contains an awful lot of iron. It's absolutely poured into horses that are mildly anemic or not anemic at all, in the thought that it will, it's a hematinib or increases their red cell count. And most of the time, if horses are anemic, they're anemic for a reason, and it's rarely iron deficiency. And that's literally the only thing that this will address. Most of the time, we don't have any really good evidence that it causes iron overloading in horses, although even though equine diets in this area, they tend to be selenium deficient, depending on where your hay is grown, if it's anywhere near any kind of roads or anything, the outside of the hay is absolutely coated with iron, copper, and cobalt, and lots of industrial effluent types of ions and metals. So iron is rarely deficient in equine diets to begin with. Even if we didn't mean for it to be there, it's almost there as a contaminant. So rarely do they need this. And I will say that there's a couple of situations in which this can be harmful. I wouldn't ever give this to a neonatal foal. You can kill foals by giving them iron the first day of life, either orally or injectably. They die of fulminant liver failure. And so don't give little foals iron. They don't need it. That was a practice that was absconded from people who raise swine. It's common practice in the industry to give baby piglets an iron shot on day one of life because, legitimately or not, as a production practice, they tend to, through the production practices into which they're raised, they do tend to be born iron deficient. Not so with foals, and they actually can be very, very harmful to them. So, foals don't need this stuff. Actually, they do not want this stuff. So don't give it to foals. It's unlikely to hurt adult horses, but in adult horses, I think it's more important to remember that if they truly are anemic, they're probably anemic for a reason, and someone needs to put a name to the reason. So not just fix the problem, but they need to figure out why it's there to begin with. Makes sense? Okay. Any questions about any of that?